start a conversation with the editor on some things that, you know, just casual things about the article. And then I build up a rapport, and they're not the ones that review the article, but at least makes me feel a little more comfortable with that journal, selecting that journal. If I don't get a response, then maybe I move on to a different, there are so many different journals out there that, but the high ranking ones are often, yes, I often worry about certain ones, like for us, the British Journal of Ed Tech, or Educational Technology Research and Development, or Instructional Science. Those are higher level tier 1 journals. And one of the ways I've overcome the fear of working, publishing in those journals is I'm working with fearless people. So I'm working with courageous people, and I'm working with hungry people, young people who are really targeting, I mean, like Meina. I'm working with Meina and another former student. She graduated 16 years ago. She finally got a tenure-track job this year. She was in corporate space for 10 years. She was really hungry. She was targeting all the hardest journals possible. Unbelievable. So the people you decide to work with get you to be courageous. You don't have to be the only one who's courageous. Partner with somebody. Then you don't feel like it's just onus is on you in that regard. So meet people at journals, write to the editor, be aware, like Meina says, that you're going to get rejected. You're going most papers will be rejected by three different journals before you publish it. So submit it, you get rejection once, submit it again and revise it, that'll be rejection 2. And then number 3, submit and you'll feel like, well, I'm on my way. So, you know, so you don't feel good about it until it's at least rejected once, probably twice. And sometimes things are rejected. At the very end, you've had it almost accepted, just minor revisions, and they go and send it to a new reviewer who hates the article or whatever, you know. It's bizarre sometimes. This is bizarre. So you just got to go ahead. If you don't submit, you'll never publish. You know, you just gotta close your eyes and hit that submit button, you know? I mean, or, you know, anyhow, talk to your friends, talk it through. Where are you going to submit? Have a logical plan for everything. The second question that she has is, what's the best way to keep up with more than 2 or 3 manuscripts without feeling overwhelmed and losing motivation? Meina, you want to try that answer?
For me personally, I think I generally make my plan. So for example, I will talk about the strategic plan. So when I should finish this manuscript, and then after this one, when I should do another one. So like that. You may work on that at the same time with different collaborators, but then you may have some different deadlines for each paper.
Create a timeline. So I had made Meina, she graduated a year ago. We treated last summer as a postdoc. I think she had 6 publications her first month at Wayne State in peer-reviewed journals, because she created a timeline. And she looked at the timeline and she said, what can I finish and when? What's logical? And make sure your timeline is flexible. You can create a timeline and change it in 6 months, change it again in 6 months. Don't look at it as an exact science. Look at a timeline as a guide. But if you have a timeline, put it in your refrigerator, put it on your garage, put it on the mirror where you comb your hair in the morning. Have the timeline purposely somewhere in front of you. You know, I have a weight chart that it's purposely in front so I don't gain too much I've had for years. Well, the same was true of publishing. You have to have it, you know, behaviorism still works. You know, and when you meet something on the timeline, give yourself a reward like a cup of tea, or, you know, some new clothes, or whatever it happens to be. There is a new article that's written, I've got sitting here, and I'll talk about today, is rewarding yourself when you publish. So this year has been unusual for me because I'm working with great people. This and this were my publications the first 6 months of the year. I've had 20. This is unusual. 13 or 12 in peer-reviewed journals, a book, a special issue, because I'm working with Meina, because I'm working with Mignon, I'm working with great people. So wrap yourself, it's not, you just take a small piece of that, get everyone to do a little bit, and you can get a lot more done. Form collaborative partnerships with other people that are purposeful, that you're people you want to work with, to work on, but don't, so here's the thing, her question is misstated. So she wrote the wrong question. She said, what's the best way to keep up with 2 or 3 manuscripts without feeling overwhelmed or losing motivation? Only you have to keep up with one article at a time. Finish one. Don't even think about the second and the third one. They're there. You may be working on them, but they shouldn't be in your brain. Whatever you're working on that day or that week, I think you need to focus your energies, and you might have a task to do a second revision and send it back to a colleague. When you finish that task, you might not be finished with the article, but you finish your responsibility. Then you can move to your next article and your next responsibility. You may have it in the planner to be working on the second article or third article, but in your brain, your focus is the first thing. You have to be focused on that one thing, because you won't be creative if your mind is scattered across the second and third and fourth articles. So your energy should be poured in to that individual piece. And when you get that done, well, then you take maybe a 15-minute siesta, go nap, and then get your brain refocused, do a few emails, and then you can open up your second manuscript or your second project, or, you know, what you're working on. So, you know, in reality, Meina is working on 5 or 6 different things, but wouldn't you say, Meina, you try and make sure your focus is and your energy is on one piece. Would you agree, Meina?
Yeah, I agree with what Dr. Bonk said. So you may have 3 or 4 manuscripts that you are working on, but then at one time, maybe for example, this week, you may focus on the 2 projects, but then maybe at a certain time and certain day, then you will focus on only one project.
Yeah, so I have a paper planner still. And what does that paper planner say? What I'm doing this day is just that manuscript. I'll have a particular manuscript on a particular day. I don't put 2 manuscripts on. I might work on 2, but in my planner, in my mind, I'm working on 1. What's the one that I'm focused on? Maybe 1 week. So this week I'm working on XYZ article, or this proposal for a conference. You know, the first week of August. The second week of August is this proposal for a conference, this grant. So have exact time. That's like a timeline works and a planner works, and we'll get back to that in our tips and advice. And you'll get 2 or 3 things done that way. And we'll end with, we have a lot of things to say. We probably should move on to our talk, Manisha.
Yes, sir. So I would like to invite you to please start presenting formally with your slides.
Okay, and do we have any comments on the side window that we need to mention? Anybody want to, how about one last question from the audience before we start here? Anyone have another question? Lindsay, Mariana, Chelsea, Zan, Chloe. Anyone? Raj is here. Meina knows Raj as well. This session is being recorded. Okay. Any question? Any question? Diane, it's good to have you here from Houston. Dan, you want to say hi? Tell us who you are, Diane.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Nguyen. I'm based here in Houston at Baylor College of Medicine. Really happy to be here. Professor Bonk invited me to this. 2 reasons I'm here. First, I'm junior faculty and interested in helping to advance my own writing. Secondly, a big part of my job is to help build capacity for staff around our Baylor College of Medicine International Pediatric AIDS Initiative, which is organization that provides maternal child health care mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Eastern Europe. So I'm currently working on a project to create a community like this learning circle to promote scholarship and publication. So I'm here to actually learn how you all are setting this up and getting tips to advise this program development too. Thanks so much.
Great. That's great. So Manisha can talk to Diane afterwards. Diane came to my talk in February at the University of Houston because they're creating a medical school there. And so Shufeng is here from Cortland, New York, Cortland. You want to say hi? SUNY Cortland.
Hi, everybody. I'm professor in State University of New York at Cortland. Writing, yes, I need to write more. These strategies. Good to see you.
She's written a book. I was on her dissertation maybe 15 or 16 years ago at Michigan State. So her advisor has now got a TV show with me called Silver Lining for Learning every Saturday night at 5:30, a webcast show. You're welcome to attend. We're talking about new models of education. I'll move on to the slides here. I'll share my screen. And this is called the G3 of writing. we were going to do this at a conference next week, the Wisconsin Distance Teaching and Learning Conference, but it moved virtual, and it's actually, they're not holding that workshop. So we're doing it this week instead. I'm glad to have all of you to give us feedback on this. We'll give guidelines, we'll tell some stories, and hopefully you'll get gigantic scholarly gains. Now you have to get gigantic scholarly gains, no pressure, Hefsa, because the criteria are changing. You know, and before grad school, I'm going to research whatever I want. When you get to grad school, I'm going to research whatever my professor wants. When you graduate, I'm going to research whatever my tenure committee wants. When you're a tenured professor, I'm going to research whatever my grant committee wants. When you're emeritus professor, I'm going to research whatever, and then you die. Hopefully you got a little more control over your life than that cartoon presents. However, if you read the article from a year ago in Inside Higher Ed, some disciplines, the criteria for tenure, the criteria for full professor are growing. The expectations are mounting. The number of publications you need to get a job as an assistant are double what they were 20 or 30 years ago, and to get tenure across universities. You're looking at this one here, sociology, or publications in sociology. New assistant professors on the left, associate professors on the right being promoted. The average, so I hate to scare, I'm starting with scary things, and then we'll give you tips after I scare you to death. 21 departments were interviewed and surveyed here, 4.8 peer-reviewed articles on average at the start date. Basically 5 articles published, peer-reviewed, before even getting a job. And you know, no wonder my colleague Min Du took 16 years. But again, she worked at Samsung. She worked in the corporate space for 10 of those years. And now she and I have put 10 articles out there in the last year. She is so productive. And so about 25 years ago, the average was 2.5. When I graduated, they say you need 2 or 3 articles published. Now that is, the expectations have kind of doubled. Newly promoted professors in some fields, you know, are you know, getting worried about this. The articles again has risen across areas. I haven't opened my chat. Manisha, is there a question that's come up in the chat?
Zana has written over there that she wants to write and publish more, and she needs more strategies.
We will give you some. And so while I show you the scary statistics, I think if you utilize, we'll probably mention 50 things today, strategies and tips. If you utilize 8 to 10 of those things, I think you'll be on the road to success. You don't have to do all that we say and what we do. But it is stressing people out, and the implications for scholarship and so forth are that, you know, faculty need these tips. They need some advices. So we're going to walk through, you know, what it's like to take the plunge into what your first project, big project might be like, and what you should commit to. Now, the Chronicle of Higher Ed, as I mentioned, has been doing a series of articles on writing. Rebecca Schumann is one of the people. Rachel Toor from East Washington University is another one that's been writing a series of articles on how to be more productive. And I've put those articles, I've downloaded them, I've made PDFs out of every one of these. I have an assistant who's made a PDF, and he put them up at trainingshare.com under Archive Talks. Go to trainingshare.com, Archive Talks, and click on the link to this talk. You will get my slides. You'll get a fun video, 2-minute video, making fun of all this, and about 50 of these articles. They're short. Each one takes 5 minutes to read at most. So spend an hour, read 10 of these things. Your life will change. There's so many good things in these articles to help you out. The Chronicle has also done a series of short, like 99-second videos on writing and publishing and writing your philosophy statement. I'll come back to that later on. So, you know, they have articles like, hardest part about writing is restarting. Well, I'm a procrastinator just like you all are procrastinators. You don't know how many times I cleaned my office last summer. I mean, I literally didn't get to work on my book project till August 1st. And by that time I had wasted 3 months. So if you think you're the only one who suffers from, you know, cleaning the house phobia, or clean your office, or watch the kids, or take the dog out, or whatever it is. You know, we're all making excuses. So what I recommend in terms of overcoming some of those excuses is set yourself up with a more structured schedule for the times in which you plan to be in the writing mode, in dog walking mode, in jogging. So I'm jogging in the first thing in the morning every day and clearing up all the rest of the day. I've got the health thing done. The most important thing is done, health. Everything else is gravy. So anything I write after that, jogging, because jogging is the most important thing in my life right now, and eating well, eating good foods. And then writing, hey, then I got the whole day to be, you know, extra on top, the bonus. So read the article. The hardest part about writing is restarting, because, you know, we'll procrastinate, we'll play with our fishbowl and do all sorts of things and make excuses. And then she's got an article, don't spend the holiday break writing. You know, spend some time with family. You know, if you've planned out things well, if you have a timeline, if you have your planner, right? You know, and read the article that she wrote about the worst writing advice in the world. You'll laugh a few times. But the article she wrote about that I want to mention is step away from the delete button. Too many of us, when we get an article reviewed and they say, you need to cut this and you need to cut that. I wrote a book, The World is Open book, that's this thick. I wrote twice that. I was going to write the second book, The World is More Open. I had to delete half the book. I still deleted it, but I saved half. I've written a book editor called Empowering Online Learning. The editor cut 6 chapters. We published them as journal articles, most of them. Save the stuff you cut. Cut text is psychologically helpful. If you have text that you wrote, that you can just plop it into an article, and even if you don't use it, the fact that it's in there, oh, I've got 5 pages written. Well, that came from something else that was cut. Don't throw anything away. Just make a file, call it cut text, delete it to whatever, you know, starter text. So what I have my students do the last 5 minutes of class, oftentimes, I have them write for 5 minutes, an assignment that they're working on, just close their eyes and they have something on paper to take home with them and start. You need starter text. So when a student wants a recommendation letter, I have them write a paragraph. It's starter text. We all need starter text. Find a way to have starter text. If it's cutting and pasting in something from Wikipedia and then rewriting it, it's starter text. Strategies to maintain your focus when writing a dissertation is an article that came out a few years ago by Danielle Marias. And she says 15 minutes a day free writing without grammar worry, without word usage. Just you can turn off your monitor and write and not worry about the grammar and structure. I once wanted to do a study of kids turning off their monitors. I never did that study. She says, only writing produces text. Anxiety, worry, taking the dog out doesn't produce any text. Only writing will produce text. Mindfulness and meditation. I get my ideas when jogging. I get my ideas in the shower. I get my ideas outside in my back patio. You need some 5 minutes of alone time away from the TV and newspaper and other things. Create a checklist of things you're working on. I have multiple checklists in my pockets all the time. You know, I've got all these notes and, you know, all these things, lists. My daughter's really good at these checklist kinds of things. So, you know, create goals of striving and what you're going to work towards. And goals for you. Visualize those goals, you know, that you have. And then figure out when you're most productive. I'm productive at night. I'm not productive writing in the morning unless I'm working with a partner early in the morning that he or she needs to get something done. I'm good at after late night kinds of things. Write first, she says, clean the house after. This is one I'll disagree with. I think we should at least spend a few minutes cleaning and tidying things up that would be distractive for your mind, whether it's a couple of little emails or a couple of something small you can get rid of and get out of the way, and then you can focus on bigger things. But definitely don't spend your whole time cleaning up mess after mess after mess. And she says turn off the smartphone or abstain from email some days or whatever. That may work for you too. Oftentimes I'll turn off my smartphone at a certain time at night and don't turn it on until the next day. Meina does this, right, Meina? Yeah. How much do you turn off your phone?
Actually, I'm using my phone all the time.
So
So
she
unless
mutes.
somebody told me that I need to wait for their phone call, I never answer my phone.
She doesn't answer her phone. You know, you have to leave a message for her, and that's the way she's so darn productive. She's the most productive person I've ever had in 30 some years of being a faculty member, and she does that. I don't. I turn it off at night. Schedule meetings in the morning or afternoon, but protect some time. She has a thing called park on a downhill slope. So when you left off, leave something that you're ready to work on. You have the idea. So when you come back to it, you can add that idea in there. You maybe have a scratched out a bit of the idea, and then you keep going. So get the momentum going, focusing on one thing at a time. Focus one thing at a time. There's an article that was written, Advice for Writing and Finishing Your Dissertation. I read that. That article's sitting here, right here. And you can read about the storytelling kind of approach. Rewarding your writing. Rewards for your writing include buying new clothes, getting a cup of tea or coffee. For me, it's chocolates. For me, it might be getting an apple and some fruits. Might be going to the hot tub and sitting and getting, for others, it's a spa. Some people, it's watching a movie. I don't recommend watching a movie. A movie takes 2 hours or 3 hours. Find something that's small to reward yourself with. Don't reward yourself with watching a Netflix endless movie after movie to watch the whole series of something. That's not going to help you be more productive as a writer. It might help you be a better human being, but it's not going to help you as a writer. Also, you have to think about who you're writing with, your co-authorship. So figure out the co-authorship ahead of time. Lay that out so there's no misconceptions of who's first author, who's second author, who's third author. Shufeng has me on a couple articles with her as a third author or fourth author and so forth. I said, no, I don't want to be second. I can do it, we knew that ahead of time. We laid that out ahead of time. And then talk about what you're good at. I'm now good at the endings. My students know, my colleagues, they all know I'm good at writing the final little bit because I can make up all sorts of junk. I can make up all sorts of stuff that kind of pulls things together. I'm good at writing beginnings. I'm good at editing the whole darn thing, and I'm good at the limitations. I'm really like limitations. Other people are really good at method sections, and I used to be, my specialty used to be the lit review. Now I hate doing the lit review. I've changed, and I recognize I've changed. But I help with the lit review. And so your role may change during your career in what you do in the article. Sometimes I collect data, but often I'm involved in other aspects of the manuscripts. Divide up the labor on what you're good at, what everyone can contribute to and feel good about. I like implications and conclusions and limitations. Students nowadays don't talk about limitations. They're not honest about limitations oftentimes. And track your changes. I like yellow highlighting to track changes. I might do track changes on the first and second, but when it gets clean, I use yellow highlighting on what changed. In the early part, use track changes early on. Respond to feedback professionally. Of course, we should be very professionally, collegial. I think we should only work with P-squared people. Meina is a P-squared, positive and productive people. There's 7 billion people on the planet. You can forget about the other people who aren't positive and productive out there. Build in time for revision. I think Beethoven is right. You have to tinker at the point of utterance, constantly tinker. Beethoven and me share a birthday together, so we're tinkerers. Mozartians plan the whole paper ahead of time and dump it in. Beethoven and combiners who do Mozart and Beethoven, and I used my dissertations on this. We studied revisionary tactics and we did keystroke mapping of writing. We created a computer prompting system in writing and watched kids revise. And there are Mozartians who dump everything down. There are Beethovenians who tinker and change, and there are combiners who do both. I think we should constantly revise. No paper should go in on the first, second, or third draft. It should at least be the 7th draft of something until you get it smooth and so forth in a single voice. There's an article written a couple years ago by Grad Hacker that summarizes all the writing tips that they had in Inside Higher Ed. So these are all the different articles in Inside Higher Ed. They have a recent article that came out in the Chronicle on academic book writing. The next thing I'm doing after this is writing a book proposal. And so this article came out a couple of months ago in May on what you should include in a book proposal. And I'll let you read. I'm not going to go through all this, but I've done 12 odd books, and you have to have purpose and scope and audience and other books that are on the market and how yours is different and all that. And this article lays it all out for you. So now I'm finally at the part where part one, where this is all supplemental stuff that we've done during the first half hour or so. Now we get to some of the meat of all this. Let's pause for a second, Manisha, and see, maybe I'll stop sharing here and see if a couple of questions arose before we go through some tips. We have Philippa in here. Kirsten, good to have you.
Philippa mentioned her question is, does it matter if someone self-publishes or has a lot of publication on open access scholarly journals? Is that kind of publishing looked down on by academic search committees?
Yes and no. I mean, 20 years ago, people looked down on online learning. There was heavy dropouts in 1998. Today, the COVID, everyone loves online learning. Well, they don't love it, but they're moving to it, okay? Self-publishing and things like that, yes, we're in the early age and people will trust what they've had until they see the benefits of self-publishing. I've got a book that I self-published that's had 250,000 downloads. I promised the people in the Philippines that my next book would be free because the sister book to it was too expensive. They sent this book to the Philippines to a conference and charged twice US prices. John Wiley, Josie Bass. I got so mad at the publisher, I said my next book will be free. And I like to publish in open access journals, but you can find, so here's the thing, find open access journals that are also peer reviewed, that are also highly respected, and some are SSCI, Social Science Citation Index. Find Social Science Citation Index journals that are also open access, then you are doing a service to the world. You are helping the world community by publishing in an open way, and you have a peer-reviewed, high-level, esteemed, people recognize, and will count for you. It's both. So in the field of ed tech, the journal IRODL is open access. International Review of Research on Open and Distance Learning is right next to you guys from the community college there. It's out of Edmonton, well, it's out of Athabasca University near Edmonton. So yeah, publish in your nearby journal. It's right there. The Australian Journal of Educational Technology is the same thing. High-level journal, open access. There are several like this. There's also the Canadian Journal of Learning Technologies, or Learning with, what is that one, Meina? Learning with Technologies, or Learning Technologies. That's open access, high quality. It's not SSCI. So now, can you publish things that are not SSCI, not peer reviewed, and just self-publish? And yes, you can. It will not probably count for your tenure in review at this moment in time. Maybe things will change in 20 or 30 years. But for today, the solution today is, as often as you can, publish in open access journals that are peer reviewed, and hopefully find the ones that are highly ranked as well. And there are more than just the two that I mentioned. For the sake of time, I just mentioned those two. But the other advantage of publishing, self-publishing, this is translated to Chinese. So it's free in China. They're translating now in Puerto Rico to Spanish, and in Uzbek, and hopefully into Arabic. There's someone, I think she's working on in Riyadh. So by having it be open access, you get exposure. Your reputation can go up. So you could have some things open access, some things self-published, but if you're a faculty member, probably not most things, maybe one or two things or so. Think of it that way. Yes, I'll get to that directory. Thanks, Lindsay. We're getting the directory of open access journals. So in your handouts is a link to the journals that are reputable and are open access, okay? That might help. There's also now in the field of education, and there's a listing of Social Science Citation Index journals, SSCI. There's also a listing for education. So if you go to my homepage, curtbonk.com, and you click on, what's the web resources. There's a listing of journals that are SSCI in education. If you click and so you can get that. I'll also talk about predatory journals here in a little bit. So that's also an important topic that we will cover here. So great questions so far. Meina, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I totally agree with you. I think Raj has one question. Do you
Okay,
want
what
to
is that? Raj, go ahead.
Raj, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Bonk. Thank you so much, Dr. Zhu. So, I recently got like an email from a publisher that said like we cannot due to the COVID, due to lot of publications, we cannot consider your journal in our outlet, but we have referred you to similar journal. And after a week, I got an email from Cogent Education, and they said I have to pay article publishing charges. And I checked the impact factor, and it is decent. It's good, but my advisor says I should not go to that. Instead, I should look for other outlets. So, could you please talk about this, Dr.
Yeah,
Bonk?
typically you don't publish in the field of education. In the science fields, you typically have to pay to publish, and your department will pay, or your grant will pay. It's the norm in chemistry and biology, but in education, you shouldn't have to pay, typically. There are plenty of other journals to go with. However, Cogent is one that one of my doc students picked, and I'm a co-author with him, and it got cited a lot, and he paid the fee. I didn't pay it. He's first author, so in that case, I didn't care, so I'm not paying and I also published with a former visiting scholar, she's from China, in IJET, which is also you have to pay for, but it's open access then, and it's got cited a lot. So there are sometimes a benefit to some of these you pay for that then they make them open access. It's called green and gold. Sometimes you have to pay to make it open access. Sometimes you have to pay to publish in it. There are different things. So most places today will publish your article and they'll let you pay a small fee, not small sometimes, they'll let you pay a fee to make an open access. And I've been exploring that. If it's reasonable, I might pay to make it open access. However, I think it's also unfair for someone to spend all their life writing these things up and then the publisher's making money on you. So there's a quandary there. Sometimes we step over and do pay the fee, and there is they do have an impact. You have to make that decision, but there are enough journals that you shouldn't have to, okay? And Cogent is one of the more, it's a newer journal, but it's also a pretty reputable publisher, and from what I can tell. I mean, I don't know everything, but I've been exploring that one in particular. There are other ones as well that are reputable. So a young person doesn't know all these things yet, right? So look at the listing that's been provided here of, in Beal's listing for open access journals to see if it is a predatory journal or not. That when you get the email from the publisher saying, we're recommending it to another journal, I have cringe a little bit. I worry about that. If they're gonna hand me off to push me article off to another journal. I want to make that decision. I don't want the editor to make that decision. Basically, they're telling you, we don't like the article, we'll send it to a second tier journal, okay? But they might be saying, it doesn't fit our journal, we're gonna send it to a journal where it does fit. I mean, these are all things. There's no cut and dry answer to you in this case. I will not say you shouldn't, I will not say you should. I will say you on a case-by-case basis. Yeah. Other questions before we move on? These are all great questions. Shelley, good to have you here. Where are you coming from? You unmute and tell us where you're from.
Hi, that might be weird. I'm on Treaty 6 territory. I live in Lloydminster, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Canada's only border city.
Border city of what?
A border city, like border city of provinces, Alberta, Saskatchewan.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like right in between.
I've been to both provinces. I've spoken in Saskatoon. I've spoken in Calgary and Edmonton. Great places. And with global warming, we're all moving there anyway. Someday we'll all be joining you at some point. So
I just wanted to say thank you for hosting this. I was really excited when I saw it because I'm a young academic and I need to learn about where to publish. So thank you, I'm excited.
You know, I've got some experience in the field, but I'm still learning and I'm still accumulating, and there's still better and different journals coming out. But I've been at it enough that hopefully I've created some tips for all of you. Right now, I've got 7 or 8 articles in review, some of them in revision, and 13 or 14, as I said, either in press or published this year, the first 6 months of this year. So it's been a lucky year. There's something, I'll end with luck. There is something, but you make your own luck in some ways by strategically focusing. There is, you know, sometimes you have a lucky streak and you have several things that are published, and sometimes it's reject, 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 and you got to pinch yourself and say, I'm the same person who was accepted last week, and this week I got a rejection. Literally, I'm the same person I was 2 years ago when I had a drought, you know, a literal drought for a while. And then this year, so, you know, just keep an even keel to it all. And if you do, good things will happen in the long run over a period of years. And if it's 6 years to get tenure, over that, you know, period of years. And early on, this is not in the talk. Here's my biggest tip for today. Early on, I would jump from conference to conference to conference, and I love conferences. And I write the paper, get it accepted for a paper presentation, and I come home back to, I was at West Virginia University, and come back, hey, there's another conference, so I'll write a proposal, do the presentation, and then the papers were accumulating like this, and I wasn't publishing them. You know, I just like to go to the next one and the next one and the next one. So, you know, I was like Hessa said, I was just scared in some ways. Where do I send it to? I had my advisors never told me anything about publishing, you know. I went through the program so quickly, I never really asked them any of that stuff. I really, you know, didn't know any of that. So, you know, big mistake is to just enjoy conferences and people and socialize and, hey, write this little mini grant to get another grant proposal to do a project and then do another conference. And, you know, it's constantly writing little mini grants and doing little mini conferences. So, you know, so my advice, it is listed, is to submit the article before the conference. I try to get myself to not only submit the article before the conference, get the publication, get it on the way to publishing in press before you go to the conference. You're not supposed to have papers that are published that you submit to a conference, but there's nothing that you can submit a paper before you get it published. It might be on the way to being published. So that's something that you might want to do. So let me go back to the slides here that we've got. Let's see if, can you all see that? Maybe you can't. Oh, I have to share my screen. I can't just share it. I was sharing with myself. And so I have to share with everybody. There we go. Can you see this? Shufang, can you see that? Hold thumbs up. Okay, great, great, okay. So now we're finally getting to the advice. So if you've gotten some advice so far, it's a bonus. That's all bonus stuff. So the writing difficulties early in the career. Here's what Hessa's facing right now. Time, she's got kids. Writing habits, she might not have good writing habits. She might, you know, be off getting a cup of tea and coffee every other, you know, hour and so forth, and not sitting down and focusing in a certain place. So what are your writing habits? What are the resources that are wrapping around you to help you write better? What does your workplace look like? I've got a whole talk on the work space, on how you organize your workspace, and I've interviewed and I've got pictures of people in their workspaces. So think about how you can be most productive. I got a hydraulic desk that goes up and down. I can sit for a while. I can move up. I spent $4,000, but it's been the most that's the most important thing I got, was a hydraulic desk. And I can go up and look out in the fields and meditate for 5 minutes, and, you know, go back down and sit. My back feels so much better. So, you know, find a computer that works, find a desk that works. I've spent a decade trying to find a chair that works. I've given up finding a chair that works. I've spent thousands of dollars on chairs, and I finally found a $25 desk or chair outside the dumpster at the School of Education and stole it before they threw it away. And that's the best chair I've got, you know. Get local support, global. Get your global friends to help you. You know, when you publish, put the notice in Facebook. You know, they'll, hey, you got a publication on Facebook. You know, you have a community. Share with your friends. Get their feedback on articles. Have starter text, as I said. Have little snippets that you can use to start writing, and so forth. Another problem early on is reputation. As you build your reputation, editors will often write to you to ask you to write a piece, to ask you to do something in the special issue. I was asked by the SSCI journal Distance Ed to write a little piece on COVID on the field of distance education and how it's evolved over time and relating the history to what's happening today. Just because he knows me, so reputation does matter, unfortunately. And sometimes being connected to people who have built the reputation, you can learn from them. You can get introduced to them. One tip I got at a conference, meet the journal editors, and at the end of their sessions, ask to get a picture with them. Take a picture with them and send the picture after, and then share an article you've written with the editor or someone famous in the field. Get your picture at the end of their talk. Say, well, it was a great talk, Dr. You know, so-and-so. I learned a lot. Can I have your picture? And then when you get home, you send them the picture and you say, wow, that was really, so that reminds them of who you are. And then you share something with them or you ask them a question about their research. You're not being pushy, but you're sharing a little bit and you get to know them and so forth. It's an easy way to get connected. So you want to build those connections, whether it's in LinkedIn, which, you know, you don't want to, yeah, I hate when people use their connections in LinkedIn to try and get something from them, but give something to someone, give them a picture, give them a little piece of an article you wrote, or give them some feedback and praise. Being aware of journals is very important. That's why I created the journal list. Find a journal list in your field and then just check them off. This is a good journal for this article. This is a good journal for that article. Look at the journals, look at the projects that you're working on, match up the projects to the journals. Energy and stamina. So always talks about, you know, she's got all these kids and she's got to teach new classes. Princess Nora, she's got to drive there. Oh, I don't know, the energy. So energy and stamina is an issue for everyone as a writer. And so having the plan, focusing one at a time so your mind is not stressed out on 2 papers or 3 papers or 5 papers. We're focused on 1 paper. You'll have unbelievable energy and stamina if you change your focus and your mindset to 1 thing at a time. And then we've got service and teaching. Now, many people publish on their teaching. They publish articles and actually collect data on their teaching. Meina studied one of my classes last year and published it in Distance Education Journal, a top-tier journal. And I didn't think, you know, much of when she was recording in the room and all that, I didn't think, it was published in a top journal, you know, because she had a unique way of analyzing the data no one had tried before. She analyzed it through 4 different methods. Meina, you want to mention that briefly, what you did?
That was a class I took from Susan Herring. It's about how to analyze the discussion data through that method. So I used Dr. Bonk's online class for the data collection. And then, so it was a class project. Even at the beginning of the class, I thought that maybe I can publish this class project for certain journals. So that's how it worked.
And similar, that's you know, you got another article on public health, right? So you want to mention that one?
The public health one that, because in Indiana University, when I was a doctoral student, I was a assistant instructor. And then for one of the public health course. And then my colleagues, she and we taught the same course of the 2 kind of sessions. And then we use the class data that and class projects for our data sources. And then we examined the students' design judgment in that study, and Dr. Bonk helped us with the project, and we published that a few months ago.
in contemporary educational technology, which is open access. We tried for something a little higher. We weren't successful, so we lowered our expectations, but it got out and it got in open access, and it looks nice, the journal article. So we didn't have, plans for high hopes for that. We got some things you just get published in whatever's there. Some you have high plans for, some you have, you don't know. But in 1997, 96, Noriko Hara took my class, and she's now a professor at Indiana University. She studied the discussion forum. That is the most cited article of anything. And I've got 350 publications, but it's an article on my class in instructional science, looking at the online discourse and how it changed over the semester. Because she used a unique method to understand the discussion forums. So sometimes you can turn your teaching and service into writing opportunities. Service might be, news articles, not necessarily journal article kinds of things, but teaching might be journal articles. So put your best foot forward. Think about your collaborations. Think about your literature reviews, systematic reviews of the research. I'm right now this week publishing in ETR&D journal research on systematic reviews of the research. And as long as I won't go into that too much. Grant projects. If you write a grant proposal, often that can serve as a literature review. So class projects often can be a jumpstart to doing a pilot into a bigger study, or a class could be actually your whole study. Many people study their own class. So think about who your readers are. Think about, what the scope might be, and look at the journals and what their impact factors are, their turnaround. Every journal has a different turnaround time. Many of them lie. They'll say, we'll get it back in a month, and it doesn't come back for 10 months. Some journals get overwhelmed with articles. In our field, computers in education gets overwhelmed, and it takes 10 months often to even just get reviewers for the article, let alone getting it reviewed. So be careful on ask other people for advice on which journals are a little faster than others. Get to know the editors, take your picture with them, whatever. Some are top tier journals, some are second tier, some are third tier, some are practitioner journals, some are refereed, some are not refereed, some have more visibility, some have less visibility. It's quite varied out there. You don't know oftentimes which articles are going to be the ones that hit. I had no clue that Noriko Hara was writing a paper that was going to be the one that hit. It just, everyone liked that one. Everyone could use that article. Sometimes you just don't know where your impact will be. But typically the higher tier journals are cited more often, but typically the higher tier journals are not open access. So in our field, the British Journal of EdTech, Internet and Higher Ed, Instructional Science. Instructional Science is where Noriko Hara went with that article that got cited so much. It's a psychology journal and it's a technology journal. ETR&D is where I'm doing a special issue right now. It's very well respected. Little less lower tier journals are listed here, and then maybe up and coming new journals might be tier 3. The tier 1, 2, 3, whatever. It's not hard and fast. There's not a hard and fast rule. Don't go back and say, Dr. Bonk says Tech Trend's a second tier journal. So many people might consider it a third tier journal, actually. It's definitely not a first tier journal. And some people might say the Journal of Educational and Computing Research is a tier 1 journal. I was on the board of that decades ago. It's a pretty good journal. So, these are not hard and fast rules. Some ways to get ideas for writing is just to subscribe to things. In the morning, I get a news feed of different things that are happening in my field that is sent to me. You might find different ways to subscribe to things that update you. And then share links in Facebook. When I share a link in Facebook of a research article and everybody likes it, I note that and I say, whoa, that's an important topic. And that's something that has an audience out there. People are interested in that topic, per se. But then I also note which journals are predatory, which journals are trying to get me to publish in them, which are fake or pseudoscience journals out there. They ask a submission fee like Raj is asking. They say they can turn it around in 1 week. So if that journal says they'll turn it around in 1 week or 10 days, it's likely to be a predatory journal. If they don't have a big review board, if they have only a couple people, it's likely to be a predatory journal. If they have a submission fee. So all these things are you know, they'll write you an email like this, Dr. Bonk, can you publish in this journal? You're a great guy, you're a great article writer, and all this. It's predatory. There's a website called Think, Check, Submit that you can review different things about the trustworthiness and reputation of the journal. So do your colleagues know that journal? Do you know that journal? Do they charge a fee? Are they clear about their mission statement? Do they have a 10-year or 20-year history? If it's a new journal that charges a fee and you don't know anybody, don't publish in that journal. Go to the directory of open access journals and look for legitimate journals. Go to Beale's list of predatory journals and look for predatory journals. Avoid those things. I'll pause again for a second and see if we have a question or a comment. Let me stop sharing here. Questions on anything there? Manisha, did you see any questions?
What does referred versus non-referred articles mean?
Yeah, so refereed means that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people have been, peers have reviewed that article. It's been peer reviewed by somebody, scientists in your field. Non-refereed means the editor made the decision to publish or not, or it's just or it's an invited article. Often you can get invited and it just gets published whatever you write. Book reviews oftentimes are invited. They're not refereed. Just the editor will review it typically. Book reviews are a good thing. Everyone should have a couple of book reviews on their resumes, on their CVs. They won't count necessarily for tenure for you, but book reviews are something you should do. They're good to get you in the writing habits. They're short. They get you excited because you learn about the field. You learn something out there. You learn about a new topic and so forth. So a second question, do we have a second one?
There is lots of sharing of information going on in the chat about how to find journals. And Meina and your Shufang, they have been helping other people who want to find different journals, how to find journals where they can publish. Lindsay McCullum has mentioned a comment in the chat. Green open access route means you can deposit your accepted manuscript with your university's institutional repository for free.
Yes, so there's a lot of universities that require you to publish your article open access. A lot of grants that require you to publish open access. And so the publisher has to, the federal government often requires open access. And so they have to make an exception for you oftentimes to make it open access. Meina, you want to add anything that I've talked about?
Not so far.
Okay, let me go back to sharing my screen here and make sure we can see that. So let's go into taking the plunge. You know, start with it. If you're writing a dissertation, divide the stuff up into sections that you might be able to publish. Sometimes you just contribute a chapter, you know, somebody else's book. Don't do too much of that. I did too much of that early on. I was writing book chapter after book chapter after book chapter. They don't count as much, but I will say I edited a book in 1998, put my kids on the front cover, the School of Ed in Indiana's on the, you know, that got me known. Editing a book can get you known if you have a good publisher, and it doesn't take as much time as writing your own book. So you getting involved with other people who are interested in the same topic. You might do a conference symposium, you might do a conference panel, and you often can take that conference symposium and create a special journal issue. So you might have a paper, and 4 other people might have a paper, and combined you have 5 that might be a conference symposium. And from that, you can often expand that into a book that somebody else takes charge of. You don't have to do much work on that, but it's a way for you to connect everybody together. You might organize the symposium. You might organize the panel. That's a way to start getting your name out there and getting your foot in the door. Don't necessarily do a whole book. Maybe let someone else do that. But it gets you, if you've done a dissertation on gaming or simulations or on machine learning like Rob might do, or AI, get 5 other people to work with you on a panel, Rob, and then take it from there. Conduct an interview. You can often publish an interview with a famous person. And then someone else talked about writing more practical kinds of things, newsletters and book reviews and that kinds of thing. These are the ways to get started. You know, when you write a grant proposal, think about how that piece of the literature in the grant could be reused as a conference paper, and then could be reused in a journal article. Grants are not copyrighted necessarily, so you can take the same text often and put it into a journal article. As I said, edit a book, get your name out there somewhere on a blog. You can often take blog postings and turn them into articles or something else if you've got enough good things in there. Utilize social media to find out what people are interested in. Submit conference proposals. So other kinds of tips. Meina will take this next section here on writing tips and insights. Meina?
Thanks, Dr. Bonk. So as I mentioned before, as an earlier career faculty member, I'm still learning, but I would like to share my personal experience with all of you here. So I will briefly talk about the setting your goals and how to make your strategic plans and reflection how to collaborate with others and professional development. Curt, could you please? Yeah, thanks. So first is setting your writing goals. As a junior faculty member, so I always think about, so what's my professional goal? Like get tenured or get, like maybe you want to get full professor, or what's your writing goal? How can you achieve that? And then, and also you have to think about your kind of research direction. What are going to contribute to your research field? How many papers do you plan to publish for each year? So once you have your original goal, and then you will make your strategic plan. So Curt, could you please move to the next slide?
And I'm going to go back a slide. And so we're giving first an early career perspective. So what we're trying to do, and I didn't mention this early on, but you may have missed this. Meina is providing the early career perspective. I'm providing more experienced career perspective. I avoid using the word older, and more experienced, we'll say. So since Meina has been so successful, and it's gone in streaks. A year ago, she had a whole bunch of things, and then again, a month or two ago, she had another series where things got out, and then she had a lull time, you know, so it wasn't like all the time, right?
Yeah, great. So once you have your own goals, and then you may make your strategic plan, it doesn't only include your writing plan, maybe also including your personal life plan or what you want to do for this week. Like for example, for your writing plan, you can make plans for 1 year, 1 semester, and 1 month. What do you want to achieve? And then in the end, you should make your plan on your weekly calendar. Like make sure when this week, what I want to finish or work on. And then some people may work more efficiently in the morning. Like I like working in the morning, and Dr. Bonk may like working during late night. He's more efficient. So you have to know your own like habits or what works best for you and make that on your calendar. And then another thing is that the third point is that you should reflect each week. So once you have that on your calendar, at the end of each week, you can find 30 minutes to reflect what you have achieved this week or what you need to improve. So for me, I reflect after 1 year of my career, and then I figure out what I should learn at this point. So sometimes I pause with my publication and try to learn new skills. Could you please move to next slide? And next slide, yeah. And then next slide, Curt. So the fourth point, as Dr. Bonk mentioned before, it's important to have collaborators. Also as a new faculty member, I had collaborators from Indiana University when I was a PhD student, like Hwasa, Dr. Bonk, and other colleagues. And also when you go to your new organization, you also maybe want to have new collaboration with your current colleagues or some professors or colleagues from other universities. So it's a great experience to working with other collaborators because you can learn from different people. Next slide, please. And then another important part is that as a scholar, we should be the lifelong learner. And then for the university, usually they provide a lot of professional development opportunity to new faculty members. I always joined the workshops before COVID-19 on our campus. And also our university support our faculty member to join. There's a National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity. They provided online workshop and training, so my university kind of supported me to join that professional development. So it's a great organization. I can share the link with you if you're interested in that. So that's my personal experience and thoughts. I'll share the link here. Thanks.
Thanks, Meina. All those articles that I've posted with this talk at trainingshare.com. So if you go to trainingshare.com, archive talks, that is my professional development. I don't necessarily get time to go to a conference on publishing and writing, but I buy books and listen to them in my car on this, or I get these articles out of the Chronicle of Higher Ed, Inside Higher Ed, The Guardian, all sorts of places. That's how I do it. I thought it might be useful just to take a moment. We're going to have some reflection after this. We're going to break out. We're going to have breakout teams actually, but we don't have breakouts in Zoom here because we're using the free version. But before that, I just mentioned how I just reflected last night how I got on the hot streak that I've had, how I got 20 articles published or in press this year alone. Well, grit has a lot to do with it. Thick skin, which I don't have the thickest skin in the world. I take rejection hard just like anyone else. But you have to push on. If you have people that have rejected you in a journal, either you revise it and you address all the points. And believe me, if you address 95% of the points that reviewers have, often you can get things published. If you address all of them, my advisor told me when he started off, when he got a rejection, he just moved on to another journal. And then someone told him, if you address the points, you can often get published. And that is true. If you address all the things in a revision table and say, here's the comment, here's how I revised it, here's the comment, here's how I revised it. Meina's really good at that. We've gotten a lot of things published just by having good revision tables and being very polite. She's really polite. She says, thank you for that point. This is how we revise it. Always say thank you for, even if you disagree totally, say thank you, that's a great idea, and so forth, or at least don't say the editor is stupid, kind of thing. So have her be polite out there, and if you're polite, you can get a lot of things published, but be persistent, have a little grit, the sense of now. I'm gonna focus on now, not 3 papers from now, not 10 papers now. Focus on now. What's this paper? This one at a time. Then get the best team of people to work with you. Get people you're comfortable in working with, not just because they're productive, not just because they're really smart. They have to be nice people. They have to be good people. They have to be people that you feel you can say anything to, or pretty much, and they can respond to you in kind. You have a good collegial relationship with. If you say to them, I'm kind of tired today, I've got a headache, they'll say, okay, we can work on that tomorrow. They won't bark back at you something, So writing is intense, yet relaxed. It's intense to have all this, yet it's relaxed and comfortable. Comes just whatever comes up, just respond as. Don't get overwhelmed with the rejects. Don't get over happy with the successes. Be happy with success. Celebrate, but don't get overly happy. Don't get overly frustrated. Have that medium. So explore the journals, and then have a list of journals. And I'm going to commit to this one and this one and this one for these projects, and then work on them one at a time. Get the roles that clarified of what you're going to do and what you're going to work on. Number 8, you might not want to try, but setting bold goals. There's a book by Timothy Ferriss called The 4-Hour Work Week. That was bold to do a 4-hour work week. I don't think he agrees with that anymore, by the way. But I set bold goals for this year. And by having a goal, humans are goal-driven creatures, you move towards the goals. Having bold, but doable. bold but doable. You can do this, right? You can accomplish this. And recheck your lists, recheck your timeline, recheck your planner, and change those goals as the semester moves on. When COVID came up, people had to change their goals. They had to change their timelines. Revel in the luck. Don't cry too much in the bad luck. You can cry a little bit, but don't cry too much. So now we still haven't gotten to the heart of this. We have 20 minutes left approximately. But I want to spend the next 3 or 4 minutes having you commit to something. So in the chat window, I want everyone to commit to 1 or 2 new things that you haven't done or that you might do that are out there that you might commit to. What might you commit to doing? And then I want you to take and write down in the chat window 1 or 2 writing dilemmas that you have. What are 1 or 2 writing dilemmas that you have? So let me stop sharing here. And I want you to, again, in the chat window, what are 1 or 2 writing? My dog is going crazy. What are commitments and what are things that you're going to do? What are things that you're going to try to do? What are your writing goals? And while we're doing that, does anyone have questions for Meina or I?
Philippa has a question. She's from Denny College in the United States. Is being a peer reviewer a good strategy to gain insight into academic publishing writing?
Philippa, do you have a microphone handy? Can you talk or not? You want to say it in your own words?
I think that's what it, well, I was going on what you were saying about specifically the sentence you said where sometimes journals have a hard time finding peer reviewers. So
Yes.
I just thought, well, if someone was to jump in and be a peer reviewer, would that help? I mean, would it be, you know, a good thing to see what submission, or do you need to have a reputation and then after you have so many items published, then you get invited to be a peer reviewer?
A couple of different answers for you. One, sometimes when you submit an article, you can suggest the possible peer reviewers. Sometimes, that's not the norm, but once in a while. You can also volunteer. When you often submit an article to be reviewed, they often will ask you to be a reviewer. You can also be recommended to be a reviewer by your advisor, by your colleagues. Journals are always looking for reviewers. You want to be a reviewer of a couple of journals. However, you don't want to be a reviewer of too many journals. There's a difference. You want to be a reviewer of some, but not a reviewer. And so I'm right now listed on 22 journals. That's too many. But I'm on the editorial board of most of those. I'm not a reviewer for most of those. It doesn't take as much time to be on the editorial board. But then you also, as you grow in your career, you want to get on editorial boards. You know, so it's interesting anyhow. Yeah. So here's a question, comments, commitments, intense and relaxed. Okay, Raj. Yeah, well, Raj focused on relaxed. Let's see what else. HESA, commitments, focus on one thing, struggles being able to, constant distractions, right, the focus. I will take one of my conference presentation turn into journal format. Good for you, Rob. Okay, so we're getting some commitments out here from people. Let me see, what else do we have? A lot of things are written up here. So you need these goals, and they're also publicly shared. Shufang, 1 manuscript sharing of my teaching starter text. That's an interesting one. Okay, good for you. Ying Liu, I'm writing the narrations for a digital exhibition. Okay. Jamie, I'm writing an art book. Well, there you go. Many, many contributors visually and 50 people. Wow, that's a big project. You want to talk about that, Jamie? I see Renee is with us.
Hi.
Where are you, Jamie? Where are you from?
I'm living in Ottawa, but I'm Michif from Buffalo Lake Métis Settlement in northern Alberta. So I've been in Ottawa for about 20 years, and I work at the National Gallery of Canada. But on the side, I'm writing a book on Métis art, and it's a comprehensive sort of overview of Métis art and artists. So we have many contributors. I have 4 children, and I work from home. So I have a lot of obligation to people, and it's been 3 years already.
Great. I want to get to Ottawa someday, so now I know somebody. No, actually, I have one of my advisors in Ottawa. His name is Dadzi Amadou, and he's writing a lot lately. Yeah, I can introduce you if you write me an email. So.
Okay, that would be great.
Yep. Who else do we have here? Anyone want to share? Anybody else? Go ahead.
Professor Bonk, Shelley, I'm going to invite her to say her question. She's a community-based researcher, and she writes with community members for patient-oriented research. What advice do you have for submitting to journals with community members that are not academics?
Yeah. If you're working with people who come from outside academic settings, then you can select probably more open access kinds of journals and more practitioner oriented journals. You don't have to necessarily worry about all the peer review and kinds of things that are out there. However, you could also take the other approach, and that is expose those community members to what the academic life is like and try for the higher level kinds of things that are out there. So, you know, it depends what their goals are. Talk to the community member. What are their goals for writing or publishing or maybe getting on a grant? What are the implications for them? So I would gather the stakeholder or other people's goals first before deciding on the journal after. And what has their experience been like in the past? What have they contributed in the past? Ask them that questions. So ask them what outcomes they want, ask them what their role could be, ask them what they've done in the past, and ask how they might want to build on things. Where are they at in their career? Where are they going with their career? All those kinds of questions are pertinent to answering the question.
Chloe from Burman University, Lacombe, Canada, would like to know, what are your ideas for getting students involved in research with professors?
We require it here. So we have a dossier system that has a checkpoints in it that requires research with the professors on teams. They have to be on so many, as Hessa knows, as Raj knows, as Renee knows, as Meina knows, because four of my people are here. They are all involved in on that. If you're not at an institution that requires that, you have to approach, write an email or phone them or whatever, or ask somebody who you meet at a conference, get on a symposium with others at a conference to get on their research team. So to get on one's team, it's a matter of just finding a similar match and writing a request and seeing what's available. It doesn't happen often immediately. Often it's you get apprenticed in, and you start by observing on the fringes. You join, maybe it's a virtual research team meeting or 2 or 3, or maybe for a year before you find your niche. It's not often just you can turn on a switch and join and up you're on a paper like that. Often it's a many-year project to get involved in because grants have to be written. The grant money has to come in. I mean, there's it can be a long process. The way to make it a short process is by working with someone where you offer to collect the data for them, and you have a sample that's available at your fingertips, and you make that available to them. I'm going to switch now to the last few tips that we have, which is the main part of this talk. I keep saying it's the main part of this talk, and it says it's back to part 1. I don't think that's correct. Here we go. So this comes from my 30 writing tips, which actually, if you go and download that, they're actually at page 2, and it has 60 different writing tips. So there's a couple of articles that are handy here that you might want to download. There are 4 of them I'll mention. There are more than that. I'm trying to find my. So there's one article that says, "We regret to inform you that." It's a 1-pager about dealing with rejection. There's an article, another one that says, "How can I get my name on that?" So that's what you're asking here. How can you get your name? How can you get involved? So read that article. There's another one on advice for new people by Cecil Smith, which I talked about at the start, getting started and writing, advice for new faculty members. And then there's a 4th thing that is my writing tips that I had sitting here next to me, but they've flown away somewhere. And so, but it's in there. These are from my writing tips. So we'll start here with the first one. 20 writing tips. The first is write. You got to write. You're not going to become a better writer without some writing. But as Meina says, I also believe in having a planner. Meina has a digital planner. She's a millennial. I'm not a millennial, so I still have a paper planner. Okay. I like notes. Notes help me organize. I write notes all the time. I have tons of them in my pocket, and I sort through them all the time. This is how, to be, and I don't want to lose them either. So all my advisors are on this one sheet of paper, Renee. So anyways, that's how I keep up with everybody and everything. Having it on paper, commitments on paper. You have to commit to things on paper or you won't do it. You have to have a visual representation on your refrigerator, on your garage, somewhere. It has to be commitments happen in a chat window, but that goes away after a while. Make a list of all the people you know. It's amazing, all the people you've probably met as potential collaborators. Who is in your network? Who is in your network? Think about, if you were to do an edited book, who would you get to write for that? That will expand your mind a little bit. When I did the Handbook of Blended Learning, I had 70 authors. My last 2 MOOCs and Open Ed books, 60 some authors. Collaboration network is important, but find good people. Don't get people on your team that lie, that make up stuff, that are egomaniacs. Life is too short. Deal with honest, positive, productive, good people that you can have lunch with and enjoy a conversation. If now in COVID, it's a virtual lunch together and, tea or a beer after work. And then draft a timeline of your goals and what you're getting done the first week and the second week and the third week, and the first draft, second draft. Have a visual like this that I have up there. Have some kind of visual like that that you can chart out, especially a brand new person. A young person should have a chart on the wall somewhere of what they're working on. And then write a note to your future self. There's a website called Future Me, and I write an email to myself in the future of what I'm going to accomplish. And then at the end of December, I get this note. Did you finish that book? Did you write that article? Did you do that book review? It's a come to Jesus moment for me. So here's my note to myself. Dear Future Me, well, here we go. Let me write to my future self. Are you teaching R546 and P540 right now or something else? I am sure that you missed your TA support from the last few years from Meina and other people. Did you work on your Education 2020 book? Why or why not? If so, what did you accomplish? Is your desk cleaner than last summer? I hope you have many friends supporting you in these efforts. It's October 2018. This means that it's less than 7 months to the next sabbatical, and that will be a biggie. Enjoy the day, your personal friend, yourself. So write to yourself. Think about the potential of every project and what you're working on. Does it have high potential, low potential, medium? Most of the time, you'll get more things out of something than less things out of something. A dissertation typically gets 3 articles, or 2 articles, or 4 articles, right? Sometimes you get more, sometimes less. It took me, I hate to say it, 5 years to get some first thing published from my dissertation. It took Meina 6 months, okay? Something like that, So I was not such a good, or in my early years in publishing and writing. Be a bumblebee at a conference and a butterfly. Sit in the back of the room, listen for a bit, go to another room, and percolate ideas, cross-pollinate ideas at the water fountain and talk to other people. Be a bumblebee in terms of research. Look at a few articles and look at something else and you know, map them out and outline them a bit. Find and save text. If you have writer's block, you need saved text. To overcome writer's block, you need something on paper, thought on paper. Number 7, scan the reference section of articles that are written. If you look at the reference section, you can figure out where people are publishing and what they're publishing. And you can write to them and find out how long it took to publish, but scan the reference list before the article. I often read the end of an article, and I read articles in reverse back to the beginning, okay? Often we get bogged down in the method section and literature review, but look at the implications, look at the limitations, look at the future directions. That's where you'll get your research ideas from. You won't get your research ideas from the other sections, from the abstract. You'll get it from the implications. Avoid high quality fixations. I had a colleague who just retired from Indiana. She went to graduate school with me. We published together my first journal article with our advisor. She got to Indiana 4 years after me. She would focus on only high-level publications because at Wisconsin, you typically focus on high-level conferences, high-level publications. She wouldn't accept a tier 2 journal or a tier 3. She almost didn't get tenure because of that, because she was so focused on only the highest level things, she gave up on all the other opportunities, and it almost cost her. She did get tenure because she branched out to work with other people at the very end. Be second author, be third author. It's okay to be second. It's okay to be fourth. It's okay to be fifth once in a while. You don't have to be the first person all the time. If you're the, so Hessa's, to answer her first question, if you're first all the time on all those projects, it's going to be overwhelmed with, your head's going to hurt. Be first on one, second or third on a couple of things, and spread things out. If you need summer money, teach intensive courses so the rest of the summer you can write. I did 8-day courses in the summer. I still had 3 months I could write. I was paid full time. My first 10 years as a faculty member, I'd teach 2 8-day courses back to back. For 16 days I'd teach 5 hours a day. Then I still got 3 months off to do whatever I wanted. As opposed to teaching an 8-week course and a 10-week course and a 15-week course. There went my summer, all gone. Intensive courses. Focus, focus, focus. Edit like Beethoven, write like Mozart. Edit like Beethoven, tinker, tinker, tinker. Write like Mozart, brain stream of consciousness when you can. Be a Beethovenian and a Mozartian as much as possible. In the Chronicle of Higher Ed, they have all sorts of writing tips and videos. If you download my slides, you can listen to the short 2-minute writing tip videos that they have where they talk about deadlines and finding your voice and setting goals. And her name is Fernanda. Fernanda's got Suarez, has all these writing tip videos on how to be a productive writer. Hessa, watch this one. Renee, watch this one. Number 12, organize a symposium at a conference. Lead a symposium. Get to know people. Take a leadership role. It's a small leadership role, but you'll have untold benefits by organizing a panel, a symposium, or a suite of papers that could be a special journal issue. Sponsor a visiting scholar who comes to visit your campus. If you have people who want to visit, sponsor them and write with them. It often doesn't evolve into a paper, but sometimes it does. Submit or publish your paper before the conference. Don't wait till after the conference, because then you just run to the next conference. Be creative somewhere in your paper. A creative figure, chart, list, model. You have to have something creative in everything you publish, or why bother? So I often have a list of 10 things, a list of implications, or a list of pedagogical teaching strategies, 10 things, to teach synchronously in Zoom. I create a unique figure in, writing research, or a chart, or a table, something unique, that makes it distinctive. Might even be the title of the paper might be unique. Something. You want to be proud of that paper, right? Modify your environment to get you to be more productive. but not too much modifications. Do not give up. Persistence wins the day. Grit wins the day. Revision wins the day. If you revise your paper, I will guarantee most will be accepted if you persist. If you have a revision table where you point out what you got, what you changed, how you changed it, believe me, if you have enough grit, if you have enough stamina, things will get published, but you have to not give up and talk to your colleagues with support. Get support from them to do that. Be polite to the editors. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, that was great. You have a wonderful point. I never thought of that. Oh my God, that's a good insight. Well, I can't believe the reviewers, 2 of them found this tremendous insight. You start with that and you say, this is how I changed the section. Thank you for that insight. This is what I did. You know, don't start with, that's a stupid idea. I didn't bother to change that at all. You're not going to get published, okay? You don't want to brown nose everybody, but you just be polite. Just be polite, okay? Recap what the reviewers have said. If you attempt to address the reviewer points, you're more likely to get published. Attempt to address them. Not all. Sometimes you can't. Some reviewers have a comment, you think they came from some other part of the world somewhere, you know? And you're wondering, what the heck? How am I going to address that? Sometimes you can't address it. You try to address all the rest. And you say, but item number 25, we tried to address, we did this, but we really, you know, this didn't fit in the scope of the study. You know, this didn't fit what we were planning to, this didn't fit the purpose of the study. If you say that, then the editor will say, oh, okay, it didn't fit the purpose of the study. They don't have to change the paper. So there's an article by Kathy Davidson, who has a book that came out a couple of years ago called The New Education. How to revolutionize the university and prepare students for a world in flux. She's really smart. She's at City College of New York. She was at Duke when she did a couple of MOOCs. She's got a paper called From Dreaded to Amazing, where she gives advice on how to change and revise a manuscript and turn it back in, how to keep a clean original copy, to look at, you know, what you've changed and how it changed, so you track the changes and you see how it's different. Read that article, download it, and, you know, start with the easy, small things, she says. I agree. Start with praise and compliments. Reader A, reader B, compliment them positive. But make the easy things and then make the hard things. Get the simple things done first, Essa. Then your brain's not overwhelmed. Do the simple grammar things, or the spelling things, or the word usage kinds of things. So to tackle the revisions in a paper, you have to mark them as number 1, maybe is easy. Number 2 is hard. Number 3 is really hard. Do the number 1s first. Do the number 2s second. Do the number 3s third. Fix the easy things. Take a break. You fix all the number 1s, take a break. Get a cup of coffee. Watch a little TV. Stand outside. Then come back for the number 2s. Then take another break. Okay? And then share your publications. Share them in LinkedIn, email, Twitter, Facebook. Celebrate. Celebrate with others, with your friends, right? My brother and my nephew got married last year in Kansas City, and they sent me these wedding pictures because they found my book at the wedding. Someone had put my book, The World is Open, they cut the book in part, and just the book cover was on the wall at the wedding ceremony. In the middle of Kansas City somewhere. They were celebrating the wedding. They were celebrating my book. It was pretty cool. And there were the World is Open sign. That was really a cool celebration when I saw that my book was used as a doorstop, basically. That was not for reading. You know, they cut the guillotine, the book cover off. So we're near the end here. So don't celebrate too much. There are some other points when you download the slides, you'll see things like don't do too much OPPs. OPPs are other people's projects. Don't get too much on other people's projects. Do your projects. Otherwise, you'll never get anything accomplished that you want. Look for a special issue you might submit to, you might contribute to. Save your research for today's a rainy day outside. If I was to show you, you know, and so forth. and for a rainy day, you know, and heck, I can, no, it's rain. I shouldn't take this up. My computer will get, you know, hurt. But anyways, here. So it's a rainy day. So today's a day when I should take my stuff and go outside and work on the rainy day stuff. Treat your graduate students as colleagues. So if you have graduate students, they are colleagues. Everybody's a colleague. Everybody's a friend. Think about people. If you treat people as friends, they'll treat you as a friend and a colleague. And that's what you are. And yet be a mentor and find your own mentor. Find a senior person who can be a good mentor to you and to lend advice and so forth. Form a writing group if you need to. You might not meet often. You might only meet once a month, once a semester. You might meet once a week. But a writing group gets you to have goals, commitments. I have not done this one much, I'll be honest. Other people find a lot of value in a writing group. I get, you know, teams of people editing books with me that I like to work with, a team of people editing books. Write for the general public once in a while, not all the time. Have some things that get a farther reach. Keep a notebook of what you're writing on. Free writing kinds of things, and then you have to read every day. So that's some things that I had prepared, what Meina had prepared. I will stop there and point out our emails are in the slides. Our slides are posted at trainingshare.com under archive talks. We've gone a few minutes over. I apologize for that if people had to leave. I thought you might want to get those last couple of tips since you all came. Ying, Renee, we haven't heard from you, any of you. Someone we haven't heard from that would like to say something? Audra? Sharon, have we heard from you?
Hi, Ying. I'm a subject librarian from University of Victoria Library.
Oh,
Canada, BC.
Great. Good to have you here. My good friend George Felicianos is on Vancouver Island too. He's at Royal Roads University. If you're interested in educational technology, he's one of the foremost authorities in all of the world, not just Canada.
Wow.
George Felicianos. If you should bring him in and have him do a talk on his research there. He's the distance learning chair for all of Canada. I'll type him in the chat window.
Thank you. Yeah, we do have the Digital Scholarship Center. Involving a lot of workshops for both faculty and students. So that will be a great connection.
Please invite all of us there to Vancouver Island, and you can have the next workshop. I would love to come. Anyone have a comment, question?
Can I just say, like, I really loved watching you present and how enthusiastic and passionate you are. And I really just enjoy your style. And I like that you're so much about relationship building. And so I'm on a youth council that I'm trying to teach them how to network and how to build relationships. And I can tell that you've had many years of experience with it. So I'm just wondering, like, you know, for those really young academics that don't have those kinds of like relationship building skills, like what you would recommend, like what are your key tips for building relationships within academia?
Have fun. So I had this other shirt I was planning to wear for the whole session and I forgot I had it underneath. This is my writing shirt, brand new from Nigeria. So you have to get in creative writing mode. In my classes, as Meina knows, I often have two ties that I bring, and I have my students guess. If the first one guesses correctly how I changed, they can win a free book. But I'll try and have different things at the ready. I might have a wig sitting by, so I can change appearance at any moment out of a suit coat and into a wig and tie. And no one knows who's going to show up, so we make it a little fun. You know, you have to enjoy life a little bit. And, you know, when comments that I agree with or, you know, and comments that I might not, you know, or I have certain things wrapped around me from trainerswarehouse.com that make it a little more fun. But you have to be serious at the same time and find your balance. Everyone has to find their balance. And the same is true in writing. We have to find a balance in terms of what amount of time we're going to devote to the writing, what types of writing, what genres of writing that we'll be involved in, whether it's journal articles and research or writing for a more practitioner audience. Everyone has a different sense of balance and where they want to go with their careers as a writer. And even mine is constantly evolving and changing. You know, I would like to be just sitting on a beach in Hawaii writing books, to be honest. That's my ultimate goal. I'm not there yet, so I've got lots of research published, you know, it's, and that's good. It's met one goal. So I want to continue to have writing goals and what I want to accomplish, and you all should too. So I don't know if I answered your question, but you know, to build collaboration, to build collegiality, you have to be yourself. You have to be genuine, and you have to be open and honest with people about what your goals are. I'm fortunate that Meina's goals and Min Young's goals matched mine for, you know, and so we're our interest areas, so we're able to form a team because they matched, you know, and so that's important. Who else has a question? Renee, would you like to say something since you're here and everybody knows you? I know Raj knows you, and Meina knows you. Renee, speak.
I'm not sure how much I missed. I actually joined late, so I don't know what has been talked about before I joined.
Well, Renee, you can talk about your dissertation because it's on writing, collaborative writing. Tell us briefly what the topic is.
So I'm working on my dissertation. I'm writing my dissertation, and it's on second language writing in college level, freshman writing in particular, and I'm looking at how I can use, or the instructor can use collaborative writing as a strategy to provide scaffolding opportunity for the students. So it's mainly the topic. And it was a great session. I only had, I think, 30 minutes. I only joined the last part, but as Dr. Bonk said, that's the most important part. So I'm happy I didn't miss that part.
Yeah, we didn't cover much of anything before that, so don't worry. You know, we're talking tap dancing and all sorts of things, right, Meina? Diane, do you have any final comments?
Yeah, I am, just like Shelley said, I am really energized by seeing a group of committed people like this from really all around the world. And I'm also looking at expanding my collaborations in my network and to meet you all. And I'm hoping to connect with some of you afterwards too. And especially Manisha, I'll send you a note to learn more about this learning circle and how you've formed this group. It's really, really incredible. So thank you for giving me the energy for the rest of my day today and the rest of my week.
I will point out, last night, I was in Thailand last night, in Bangkok, a virtual conference, and they did something interesting kind of like this. They kind of made a conference free and open to the world, and some of you attended that. I recognize some of you here again today. And they had it streamed live to Facebook Live as well as in Zoom. I think they may have had face-to-face people as well. And they just rolled it. They just kept rolling a different keynote every 30 minutes. It was really interesting. So there's a lot of people experimenting right now with sessions like this in different formats to get people, you know, connected, to keep them learning, socializing, reflecting. All this is needed. So I did one for Manisha last month as well on teaching pedagogy, teaching online, and so forth. Is that recorded and is it available, Manisha?
Yes. All the sessions are recorded, and everyone who registered will receive the recording. And it's really fascinating. I'm so excited about this micro-learning sessions because I get so much positive energy from all of you. You know, it's so fascinating to see so much learning going on at many different levels. In the chat, the people in the learning circle are helping each other by posting some resources or the journal title. And if a question is posted, then sometimes even in this chat, people say, I love that question which XYZ person posted, you know. So it's so fascinating. You know, this energy is so exciting and you feel so refreshed. People are just here because they want to learn. And we are actually all fueling each other with this process. So many connections are made, so I don't think COVID is all this, we are socially isolated, we can say. Micro-learning is making us help build connections. It's a global village, like, see, we have all gathered from so many different places, from Asia, Dene College, Women University, Indiana. So from so many places. As you mentioned last time when you presented, I hope you can present again. I'd like to invite you to present again too. And you're all welcome to come to the territory where I work, Treaty 6 territory. It's on our Muscogees Reserve, and there are 4 Cree nations over here: Samson, Louisville, Montana, and Armanskim. So we are also a tribal college, and I'm finding there are many similarities. When people say, that there are not much differences between your e-learning at a tribal college or at a larger university or research university. I'm not going to take much time because I can go on and on. I'm so excited about this micro-learning of connecting people. I think what somebody said beautifully in one of the feedback, it's learning opportunities situated in our practices. And I really want to thank you, because what you mentioned, starter text, and people gave so many examples in the chat about starter text. I presented in a conference. I'll see if I can convert it into another, like I have a review which I did. So there are many examples of starter text, which we all were reviewing ourselves. When you were talking, I love how you facilitate Professor Bonk and Meina, to both of you, because you are making us do goal setting, or it's our reflection too. We are learning, but it's not just one-way communication. At least one new point we can take, and take some action. So it's goal setting going on in our mind. Your brain is working. How can I apply the knowledge which I'm learning right now from Professor Bonk in my writing skills? So it's often
difficult to situate my brain into each of your brains and what your particular projects that you're working on. But I'm trying to make that effort to think about your perspectives. Someone asked in the chat privately for the book link. The free book is there if you want to download a free book on how to teach online. When you send the link, this link, could you also send the link to the first show that I was on?
Yes.
So they can have that as well. So, sure. And there'll be a conference in Edmonton, I think, next year. So maybe what's called PCF 10 conference, maybe in Edmonton, for the Pan-Pacific Conference on Open Education might be coming your way. So you're an hour from Edmonton.
Please come. I will host you at the college in person also anytime. You're welcome. And if any one of you are coming or, would like to present, or you're welcome, in person or online. I'd be pleased to, work with each one of you if possible. There are 2 people in this session whose feedback it would be interesting to know. One is Charmaine. Charmaine, how was your... just say something, introduce yourself. Charmaine Soucy.
Hi, Charmaine. Alberta is a beautiful province. Try and get there if you can.
Charmaine is from this reserve, so I want to invite her to say something. Yes, Charmaine.
Hi there. Good morning. My name is Charmaine Soucy. I'm Indigenous Cree from Treaty 6 territory in Alberta. I am interested in applying for a master's next year. So I feel like one of the challenges to writing is that I write a lot colloquially and don't use a lot of the terminology that's in I'm in Indigenous social work. I'm starting my 4th year in September, and I just feel like I'd like to strengthen my writing so I can apply for grants and apply for write the things that I'm really passionate about.
I'll tell you a little tip that's a simple thing. That when I wrote my World is Open book, it was based on Thomas Friedman's The World is Flat book, kind of. I had my son look at The World is Flat, the book I used as a reference, and looked at the transitions that Thomas Friedman wrote. And he made a page of all the transitionary sentences. And I put those transitions next to me to get the, so if you want to get the language, if you want to start using the language, if you have children, pay them a little bit of money to create a one-page sheet of paper, like a cheat sheet, of the words that other people use. So then you start using those words and they become part of your dialogue. I'm not saying you plagiarize a sentence. I'm saying look for the words that they use, the transitionary phrases, the key scientific words, and maybe put on one side, you put the scientific words and maybe definitions. On the other side, you put transitions. You don't believe just having the transitions went a long ways with getting me to write more. I would look at a transition. Oh, I never thought of that transition before. Oh, that's called procedural facilitation. That's out of my, actually, it relates back to my dissertation. Getting people to write more creatively or critically, you need starter prompts. So you can have starter, like, you know, ending sentences, transitioning sentences. So to go back to your point about trying to write more in a more scientific way or more like the scientists, have the words that those scientists are using on a sheet of paper that's sitting right next to you. Oh, there's a word I haven't used in a while, and you put that in there and you craft the sentences around that, you know, and you shape it up. Does that help, Charlotte?
Yeah, that gives me something to think about, because I was thinking about actually writing those definitions so they're like more visual. I started putting Post-it notes on my wall of like words, like the last word I put was vicissitudes because I couldn't get it into my vocabulary. Because when I'm reading my articles, I have to look up words. And sometimes they just don't click unless I repeat them to somebody or explain it to somebody, or like, so I think that really helps a lot and gives me something something meaningful for me to do.
Just do a search for the common words that you overuse. I overuse myriad and plethora. My colleagues all point that out to me. So when I do a search on my paper before I turn it in, I search for the word myriad. If I've used it too many, I change the words. I try not to be redundant. And different people like different words. My colleagues, they always, I like putting smiley faces when I'm working on my team and they've used the word over and over again. You know, this is, you know, by the way, you really like to use the word, so examine. On a recent paper, one of my colleagues, I never use examine, but she's used like 15 times. So we changed more than half of them to some other kinds of words, and it really helped the paper out. So look for redundancies. It sounds like a simple thing. Use thesauruses, online thesauruses that saved my life when I'm writing. Online dictionaries that saved my life. You know, when I'm looking at a word, I just type the word in a Google search. I don't even go to a thesaurus. I just type the word, put that word in a Google search, and it will often come up with synonyms and antonyms for that word that are stuff I've never thought about. Oh, that's a really great word, monumental. Oh, cool. There's, you know, if it fits, don't put it in just because it's a new word. Make sure it fits, right?
Do you also keep like a list of quotes that you find in books? Like,
Sure.
do you keep a digital book?
So when I get a book that I listen to in my car and it's got stuff that's quotable, I'll buy the physical book. I have no problem with buying a physical and digital. In fact, it's better to have the printed book if you like to have the quotes. And so, yes, I will, if I really like the author, I'll make a couple page thing of the favorite quotes from a book. And a recent article we have a Prince quote in it. We have H.R. McMaster, who Trump fired. You know, I don't know, what was he, Secretary of Defense or something like that. We have some really cool quotes. So a place to go for cool quotes. Goodreads has quotes, but Brainy Quotes. Brainy Quotes is a great website.
I think I've used it before.
You use Brainy Quotes?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
A funny story about your seat is that I was having a hard time finding a good seat. And I went to this PV Mart. It's like a farm store. And there was this tractor seat, and it was amazing. I just love the seat, and I literally just found it a few months ago. So I like that little tidbit.
Yeah, comfort. Comfort is important, you know, when you work. You'll be relatively comfortable when you work, and you can't be just seated in the same spot. So that's why an elevated desk. It could be manually elevated. It doesn't have to be hydraulic. These are really cheap if they're manual, you know. But you have to change the work environment. I like to work kitchen in the morning and downstairs the rest of the, you know, my home office cave. But I have a back patio. I like a Panera, you know, Barnes and Noble. I can write anywhere pretty much.
So on behalf of all of you, I'm Mistahin in Anaskamon Pematasovan Emikosian. It's a very interesting session. However, I have to end right now. And I hope we can come back again together. And I'm going to please communicate with me by email. Lots of love. And air hugs, you know, I don't know how to do air hugs, but thank you so much.
Thank you all. Bye.